What's going on, everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 13.3. This one is going to be a weird patch, to say the least, because I thought the patch was minor. Turns out it's quite major, because a lot of comps that were like pretty bad before are really good now, and a lot of comps that were good before are either mediocre or unplayable. So let's get right into it. In the S tier, we have Experiment Twitch. There are a lot of different builds you can do on Twitch. Experiment and the Bruiser version are probably going to be the most consistent ones, but I wouldn't be surprised if people figure out other ways to use Twitch in the future. Urgot Tristana Reroll, another kind of experiment comp, except you only run 3 experiment, also very good. It was good last patch as well, but I think it's even stronger now that a bunch of other stuff got nerfed. Sorcerer Zoe, one of the new comps, emblem reliant, I know, but all good. It's actually funny. I think this patch is going to be one of those very augment dependent comps where if you get a +1, it's really, really good. Or if you get one of the hero augments, which we'll go over in just a little bit. Bruiser Mundo, very strong. Same thing as before. Scrap Corki definitely got a big bump up. Corki is very powerful right now just because attack damage is really powerful because Twitch is good. So if you go Twitch, you see 5 other people go on Twitch. I'm exaggerating, of course. You can swap over to Corki. Ambushers, I think ambushers are highly, highly underrated because there are 2 ways to play them. Everyone's going to go for the Camille reroll, but do not sleep on the Echo 4-cost version. I think that's actually like a sleeper build right now. Enforcer Vi, very good, but you need the emblem. Also really, really helps if you hit Caitlyn. But I've seen some 6 Enforcer builds work as well. Dominator, same thing as before, but a slightly weaker. Rebel Zoe, same thing. Decent comp, but slightly weaker. Pretty much all 3 of these up top, like Dominators, Rebel Zoe, and Emissary Corki. Still good comps, still great comps. Just not something you're going to hard force every game like you did on last patch. Nocturne reroll, good if you get artifact emblems still. They reduced the ways to get artifact emblems, but of course if you hit them, it's still going to be godlike. Heimerdinger Flex, pretty solid. Like, it's more reliant on Corki now. Maybe we should call this Corki Flex now. It's essentially Heimerdinger plus Corki and a bunch of Sentinels. Form Swapper GP, Gangplank got a couple of buffs, pretty nice stuff. Form Swapper is just always reliable if you're able to hit Jace, but that's a big if. Conqueror, really good if you get good Conqueror starts, just farm up and get all the stacks. Emissary, Sorcerer, Nami, solid. Blackrose Flex, okay if you're going AP, but comps that worked last patch that do not work now is going to be Renata. Family, awful comp. Chem Baron Cashout, awful. Kogmaw and like Ziggs, like all that stuff got like much worse in the recent patch. And then for the very special tiers, the ones where you need like specific augments to make them work, like Trolling Trundle, very good right now. Crimson Pact Vladimir, very good. Build Different, very good. Reunion, good. Menaces, Martial Law, Bronze for Life, why not both? I like all these at the top. And then the ones that are playable are over here. What could have been Combat Medic, Betrayal, Mad Scientist, Rennie, Unlikely Duo, Blade Dance Aurelia, Geniuses, and Gloves Off Vander. And then the one I would kind of avoid right now is going to be Sisters. So if you want to one-trick some comps, be a dirty one-tricker. Experiment Twitch, it works well with the emblem, but you could play it without it. So Twitch and Urgot comps, you could probably just hard force every single game. Corki, I'm always a huge fan of Corki one-tricking because Scrap makes it so you don't need like very specific items. Ambushers, very decent. You could do reroll or the 4-cost version. And then Exodia comps, right now I think the only like completely busted thing still is going to be Nocturne with +1 range, but that could change in the future. I think most comps it's like they're not complete auto win like a 500 cash out Chem Baron, for example. And then lastly, for beginner comps, I always recommend Ambushers or any of the emblem comps if you get them on stage 2-1 and then just hard force it. So if you get Sorcerer emblem, just click Sorcerer Zoe and then just like tunnel vision into the build. But let's move up back at the top. Let's cover how to play each and every one of these comps. We're going to start off with Twitch, and I've been doing tier lists for 5 years now. I'm the longest player run tier list there is. So if you're a beginner or if you are already good at TFT but are too lazy to figure out the meta yourself, you've come to the right place. But let's get on into Twitch. Like experiment build, very classic. It's good with Bronze for Life too, believe it or not. So if you get Bronze for Life Twitch, it's nice. But for emblems and augments, you want definitely Experiment emblem and Bruiser emblem. Bruiser goes into the Bruiser Mundo build. But with the 5 experiment, you have Twitch, Nunu, Mundo, Urgot, and Zyra. If you get Warwick, great. He's also an experiment. And you can even go 7. We can check the data really quickly. From 5 to 7, it goes from 4.2 to 2.93, but obviously you need the emblem and you need the Warwick. But it is something good to kind of chase for. As for the rest of the comp, you could easily complement it with Elise and Vi at 4 costs, and then for legendaries, go for Mordekaiser or Jace. Both of them work. So there are many different ways to kind of build this. If you get good Mordekaiser items like an Edge of Night, definitely run him. If not, just drop a Jace in the back line, put the Hexforge near your Twitch, and he gets a nice little buff. And you also get Form Swapper with your Elise. So a bunch of different legendaries you could potentially run in this build. Caitlyn, another good one. Before Caitlyn, what do you think you're going to run instead of her? Well, it's going to be a sniper. Most people are going to use Zeri. She's a good item holder for the Caitlyn because she could use attack damage items. But overall, this is just like a standard Fast 8 comp, Mundo 2, Twitch 2, and you are going to be set. And what I like about this, again, is you have a lot of different outs with a lot of emblems. So it's really fun to play if you ever get a spatula or a pan. For items on Twitch, red buff is going to be my favorite. Gives him attack speed and an anti-heal. So what he likes to do is he does a big AoE burst, and the anti-heal makes it so that they cannot heal back up before they die later on. IE solid, Rageblade solid. You could also go other generic AD items, or double Rageblade also works. Runon's Infinity Edge, Deathblade, Guardbreaker, Giant Slayer, anything like that. Mundo, just generic tank. I do prefer like Warmogs plus 2 resistance items though, like full tank items, not that utility nonsense. If I do get like a Sunfire Cape and I have 3 full tank items on Mundo, I'll put the other items on Elise. Like Sunfire Cape, Protector's Vow, things like that. Of course, if you have red buff, you don't need Sunfire Cape. And then for anomalies, Twitch's best anomaly by far, I think, is Dragon Soul, because he attacks different units, and Dragon Soul works in that the first time you attack a unit, you deal like a % of their max health, so he attacks everyone, so he pretty much triggers it on everyone. Mini-Me's is pretty good on most attack speed based champions. Titanic Strike's also nice, or any just generic ADAS augment. Mundo, any generic tank. I just picked the first one I see based on, but overall, like, pretty easy comp in terms of fast aiding. It's not like that complicated of a build. But there are a couple of different weird things you could do if you get certain emblems. Next comp up we have is Urgot Reroll, Bronze for Life, and Sentinel version. Both kind of work, but I prefer the Bronze for Life version even without Bronze for Life. It's just a very solid build overall because Urgot's such a beast tank up front. By the way, you want to put Experiment on Urgot and Zyra, and then Tristana just like a solid damage dealer in the back. One thing to note, and I think a lot of beginners kind of mess this up, is that 3-star Urgot is mandatory, but Tristana, you prefer having your 3-star as well. But if you finish your Urgot 3 really early, you could always go for a Corki backline damage dealer. You just need anyone in the backline dealing damage, doesn't matter who. 3-star Tristana is just easy to get because you're doing a 2-cost reroll. But if you ever find yourself in a situation where you finish your Urgot really early on, you could itemize like a 4-cost or even a 5-cost in the future. Like Jace also works here, but Corki is much easier to get, so we're gonna do Corki in a lot of times where we don't get the Tristana. But this comp really only works if you're uncontested. Like, I do not play 2-cost reroll contested if I can help it. But let's say you have a very good spot for Urgot, but someone's just like hard forcing it anyways. I'd say you could still go for it if you have a much better spot than them, but you have to be the judge of that in your game. Like, if you have 4 copies of Urgot and they have 1 copy of Urgot and they're very keen on still hard forcing it, like, unlucky, you're gonna have to deal with it. But you shouldn't pivot out of it, if that makes any sense. But pretty easy comp to play. 2-cost reroll, go to level 6 at 3-2 and stabilize your board. And then find the 3-star Urgot later on. Sterex is going to be his most important item. A lot of people are building like Infinity Edge on Urgot. I really don't think it's the best. Let's check out the data on it. I actually have not checked the data on this comp in terms of Urgot items, but let's do it right now. So yeah, I'm not surprised. Sterex, most build and highest average placement. Let's just type in Urgot over here. Okay, it seems that people are not even building Infinity Edge, but I swear I see a lot of people try it, and like, I wonder why they are building it. Like, the tank build's much more important because you have a damage dealer in your backline in Tristana or Corki, so you really just want Urgot to live, and Sterex BT is going to be the best way to kind of do that. Next build up we have is Sorcerer Zoe, one of the new comps, so you want Sorcerer Emblem, do not play this without it, and the main board you're going to play is what you see here. Maybe you don't have Mordekaiser yet because you are level 8. So your front line is going to be like Vladimir, Elise, and Swain. Unfortunately, you most likely will not have the Blackrose yet because you probably won't have LeBlanc. So you have to play a 6-sort version before you actually hit this. So just drop your Lux and then play other random units instead. You could do like 4 Form Swapper if you happen to hit Jace. This comp works really, really well with different legendaries. You have like Mordekaiser, LeBlanc, and Jace. You could do like 6 Sorcerer and like 5 Blackrose or 4 Blackrose. Add in like a Cassiopeia or Morgana here before you hit your LeBlanc later on. So a couple of different options there. I guess you could call it like semi-flexible, but you're really just playing all the Sorcerer units once you can get them. For your primary carry, Zoe's going to be the go-to. Standard AP build with a mana regen item, Jeweled Gauntlet because you get so much ability power from Sorcerer, so you just want to crit, and then like a Gnasher's Tooth. Something that you might think would work well on Zoe, but is actually pretty bad, is going to be something like an Archangels. There are definitely better options there because, again, you want to critically strike, and you already have enough AP from your Sorcerer buff. Main tank's going to be Swain. You could 3-star him, you could not 3-star him. Either works. Like in some games, you have your 3-cost unit, and then you randomly, as you roll down, you see like 2 copies of him in shop. You could pick them up and go for a Swain 3. It definitely is very strong for your frontline because you don't really have a strong frontline in this comp, and that's really what you're itching for. So if you have like a duplicator on bench, like a lesser dupe, definitely go for it. If not, no worries. Swain 2 is good enough. You want to prioritize just focusing on getting to 8 Sorcerer by hitting LeBlanc. As for anomalies though, you definitely want to prioritize Swain anomaly, and it seems a little counterintuitive because you're like, hey, Swain's a 3-cost unit, he might even be 2-star, and Zoe's a 4-cost unit. But because you need frontline in this build so much, I often find it to be a little bit better than buffing up your Zoe in the back. Nothing wrong with Zoe if you get a mana one for her, like Kill Streak, Nothing Wasted, or any like damage amp one. I think it's fine to put on Zoe, but I definitely prefer going for a tank one on Swain. Mage Armor is probably going to be the best one. That's the one where you get like tankiness based on how much AP you have, and when you're running 8 Sorc, that's going to be pretty good. He's probably the best user of it. But alternatively, you could also go for a Nami Swain reroll. We could talk about that comp later. But next comp up we have is Bruiser Mundo. Not too much has changed in this comp. You just want to run 6 Bruiser and Twitch with Rageblade in the back. You have so much beefiness up front. Mundo's unkillable. Anomaly Mundo. Any tank anomaly works, like Giant Size, the Resistance ones. There's so many. I forget the names of all of them. But literally any of them work. Another good one is like Slow Cooker. Slow Cooker's nice. He ends up out DPSing your Twitch, actually. And then you also want to play 3 Experiment with this build. Put Mundo and Twitch on the Experiment hexes, of course. And there's not too much else to say about this. Very easy comp, but you need the Bruiser emblem. I wouldn't recommend going for this without it. I have seen people do it, but don't expect like a crazy game if you do it. But if you get a Twitch for free and you have a bunch of Bruisers already upgraded, like you could just play this comp without Bruiser on Mundo. You'd go Nunu main tank instead. And obviously 3-cost tank is much worse than a 4-cost tank, but I am just kind of mentioning backups for the build in case you don't get the Bruiser emblem. Next build up we have is Scrap Corki. Probably like one of the newer upcoming comps in the patch because no one really played Scrap before unless they had Scrap Emblem. And I will note Scrap Emblem is nice but not required. If you notice here, like if we exclude the Scrap Emblem, it's 4.3, and if we have it, it's actually a 4.4, which I think is so funny. But it works like that because a lot of these games is that you don't hit Rumble and you get to 6 Scrap without Rumble. So that's why it looks a little weird in the data. But of course, like the emblem is going to help you. It's just a little counterintuitive, but it's not mandatory by any means. You really just need to play around Corki and then hit your Rumble later on and have both of them kind of carry. Echo's also pretty good too. A typical frontline whenever you are playing this is going to be what you see here in the Elise, Alawi, and Tristana paired up with what you have, because you do need Artillerists and you also want Bruiser and Sentinels in the front. And when you get 2 beautiful 4-costs to kind of fill those slots, it's really nice. You could also play Urgot over the Tristana. That way you get Pit Fighter for Gangplank. If you are using Gangplank as your carry, I would encourage you to play Urgot. But if you're using Corki, Tristana is probably going to be a bit better. For the anomaly, you want to be generally pretty flexible. On Corki, you want any attack damage anomaly. That's going to be really good. Rumble's also really nice with it too. Getting him AP anomalies is going to be preferred. By the way, I just updated the image here. You want the tank items on Alawi. Elise is good with any of the mana items. But of course, you prefer anomaly on your Corki. Another thing you can do whenever you're playing this is switch the Last Whisper onto the Gangplank and then go triple damage item Corki. You could do like a Giant Slayer, Guard Breaker on him with the IE. That's also really nice. And I also list out a bunch of possible components you could put on these different units because, of course, you don't get perfect components every single game. But essentially what Scrap does, it turns one of your components into a full item. which is obviously a really big bonus. But next build up we have is going to be Ambushers. I'm really excited to talk about this comp because of course there's the standard Camille reroll, and it's going to be really good. Same way you played it in the previous patch where you just go 5 Ambusher and then throw in Garen. Garen's always nice. Buff up your tanks, like fill in whatever traits you have. Scar's good with Firelight and giving Watcher to Garen. And then Loris to get you Sentinel. And this build is all fine and dandy. You want to do a 2-cost reroll for that. If you get Hand of Justice, that's probably going to be your best item. It both heals her and gives her a bunch of crit, which is really useful because ambushers are based off of critical strike chance. And you could secondary carry 3-star Smeech or a 2-star Echo. But my favorite version of this is going to be the Echo build. Not so much because it's better, because like honestly, if I could choose my game, I'd want to go Camille reroll and hit Camille 3-star every single time. When you play this comp, you want to run a bunch of Firelights, as many as you can, plus the 5 Ambusher, and Echo's just going to be a super tank and also super damage. He's just going to be rocking everyone's world. You could also run duplicate Echoes, really nice stuff to do, and Echo runs all sorts of different items. We have like a big list down here. Like Hand of Justice, Rabadons is going to be my favorite combo, but BT, Ionic Spark, Titans, Crown Guard, Edge of Night, Quicksilver, Guard Breaker, like any damage item is going to work on him. I like the combo of like healing plus damage rather than like a tankier build on Echo, but on the second Echo you just build whatever you can get. On Jinx, any AD item works, like Deathblade really nice, and all good there. But for anomalies, you want invisibility on Camille, and Last Chance is really good. Also, any damage amplification is nice. Echo diving in really good. I think that one's my favorite. Invisibility, Comeback Story, Last Chance, lots of different options there. And again, I think this is like going to be one of my favorite builds going into the patch. So try it out, let me know how it goes, and do you like this more than the Camille one? Or are you a regular person and prefer Camille? By the way, if you are looking to get your games reviewed by me, submit them down in the form below in the description for free coaching. So I want to cover like games of all levels and try to help everyone out as much as I can. And I want to do one video this weekend, so submit your games now today. Like instructions are going to be found in the form. But next build up we have is Enforcer, Vi and Caitlyn. This is going to be a +1 Enforcer emblem build, and it's really important to get to Caitlyn because without her the comp kind of sucks, like not gonna lie there. It's kind of like the Rebel build where it's like if you don't get Jinx the comp sucks. Like there are a lot of builds in this set where if you don't get the legendary it's just completely mediocre, but if you do get it then it's like you're set for life, you know, not for life but for that game. But Vi's really good as like a intermediary carry to get to Caitlyn, and just build frontline Bruiser, regular items on her, tank on Loris. You could also run Alawi instead of Ambessa to get more tanks for Sentinel. It's up to you, depends what type of items you built. Sometimes I build a lot of frontline items if I'm going Enforcer, that way I could itemize both Vi and Savika, and before I can use those items on Savika, because I don't have her yet, I'm going to be dropping them on Ambessa sometimes. Twisted Fate's solid for any random AP items that you get, but not ideal. You want to focus more on Vi and Caitlyn. But of course, if you need like more tankiness, if you feel you need that, then dropping in an Alawi is perfectly fine to do. Alawi is just solid. Like all the 4-cost tanks, like they could be run in any comp, you know, that's the issue here. But for anomalies right now, for Vi, diving in, gonna be my favorite. It's the very similar ones to what Echo wanted. Dramatic Entrance, also nice because you have a bunch of other units you could kind of use, and then she uses the health really well. Invisibility, good because she's like melee. Like Vi can honestly use all sorts of different anomalies. She could use tank ones, she could use damage ones. It really depends on how you have her built. And then in the backline for Caitlyn, like any AD ones are going to be fine. Next build up we have is going to be the A tier. So those were all the S tiers. Just to sum up, a bunch of them use some emblems, but the most consistent ones I think is going to be like Twitch and Urgot. And I think those are going to be pretty dominant on this patch. Speaking of dominant, we have Dominators, not planned by the way. Emblem, no emblem build, depending on what you want. I'm probably only going to play this with the emblem from now on because it did get nerfed quite a bit. Ziggs is not the god he was once before, but he's not horrible either. I played this with Blackrose and Dominator. Some people like going 5 Blackrose, 4 Dominator. I like going the 6 Dominator with 4 Blackrose. But you could really run all sorts of different combos in your endgame. I highly recommend checking out my 3-hour guide that's on my channel if you want to get like a masterclass on Dominators. So if you want more info, go there. The comp did not change since last patch apart from Ziggs getting nerfed, but he's still very solid as an item holder before you get to Silco. One added bonus about this build is like Silco. He used to be very contested from all the Chem Baron players, but I can tell you right now, Chem Baron is complete donkey garbage. Like, if we look at stats, traits on teamfight.lol, type in Chem Baron over here, like, it used to be much, much better. Like, yeah, 7 Chem Baron's still nice, but like getting 7's really difficult, right? Because you need to get the cash out, you need to get Savika and things like that. But if we compare it to the patch before, pretty much all the other breakpoints of Chem Baron are decently worse in the patch right now. Like, another way to check on Chem Baron is to go to items and then type in perfect. And you'll see here, like, a lot of these items went from like 1 point something to like 2 point something now. Like, there's not even a item that's better than 2 point something. One of them's even like a 3.4. Imagine getting a 500 cash out, you're on 1 life, and then you get one of these 3.4s. You might just lose the game and get 8th. We do still have a breakdown here. Like, there are a couple of them, you know? Not saying it doesn't win, not saying you can't win with Chem Baron anymore, but it's much, 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 much worse than it was before. Because the frequency dropped as well. We went from 0.03 in last patch to a 0.02 today, and it's doing worse. So it's like double effect right there. But what I'm trying to say is that those players are not taking your Silcos anymore, so he's going to be a free person when you are rolling for him. Next build up, we have his Rebel Zoe. Still a solid, respectable comp. It didn't really get touched too much. I think the best way to play this is to just go like fast 9 and play around Jinx, because the comp sucks without Jinx. Sometimes you could even skip Zoe, dare I say it. But Alawi 2-star is going to be the most critical unit at level 8. And then if you could get a 1-star Jinx, like, fantastic. Like, I'd only play this comp if I have super econ or if I'm super win streaking. Either or. But pretty much you just play Rebels, click all the Rebel units. Instead of Echo, because you don't have Jinx yet, you could play Elise. She's really nice to kind of put in because she gets Bruiser from set and provides a ton of CC. Or you could do something like 4 Sentinel up front, Zoe in the back. And then once you get the Jinx, swap them out, put in Echo or any ambusher, and then have Jinx be your primary carry. It's much easier to play with the emblem, so I definitely recommend checking this version out. You could fit in a lot more cool stuff. Next build up we have is the Emissary Corki build with Ambessa. It is a little bit weaker. It's not the best, but it's still a respectable A tier comp if I'm able to hit this. I think since it didn't get nerfed or buffed, it just kind of sat there in the middle, right? And like, I think other comps got buffed a little bit harder than some comps got nerfed. So I'm still going to play this comp a lot. I still like it a lot, but your Corki is going to be taken by a lot of different players. So that's going to be a little tricky. I think Corki, in terms of damage units, he might be the most played 4-cost unit out of all the damage units in 4-cost. So let's check it out here. I've typed in 4. Twitch 1.03. Echo's kind of like in between. Like, if he's in Firelight, he's a tank. If he's in Ambushers, he's going to be a damage dealer. But then we look at Corki, 1.77, higher than both of those, right? He's as popular as Dr. Mundo, and Mundo's a tank. Tanks are always going to have a higher play rate, by the way. That's why Elise is 3.5 for some reason. But yeah, out of all the damage dealers, he is the most played. I guess Vi is slightly higher, but most people don't build around Vi that much unless they're playing Enforcer. So my point kind of still stands. Like, I think Corki is one of the more popular units. He just fits in so many different builds, and like, he's not needy, you know? He doesn't need perfect items. He could use damage items or utility items pretty solidly. So utility as in stuff like Last Whisper and Red Buff. So it's just much easier to play around him compared to other 4-cost carries. But I think because of those reasons, like, it's going to be a little bit harder to hit this comp. Also, Bronze for Life got nerfed, which was really, really good with this. Probably the best augment in the game with this. So it lost a bit of power there. Still very good though, and very solid. If I am able to fast 8 and I am very rich, or if I get something like Coronation, I love Coronation with this build too, because you get to level 8 and then you get the +1 unit in for 9 units from the Coronation. And since you're not running any legendaries, you don't need to actually level up to level 9 to fit everyone on your team, because you're running mainly 4 and 3 cost units. So that's one other augment that I kind of really like in this build. But overall, just like a standard fast 8 type of build. Quick Striker Nocturne, like, you could play it with the Quicksilver build without any artifact items, but I highly, highly, highly recommend only playing this with Rapid Fire Cannon, Fishbone, Sniper Focus, things like that, because it's just so much better and so much easier. Like, you're gonna have a much easier time with life. It's like asking if you'd rather be born poor or rich. Like, I'm sure if you ask most people in the entire world out of the, what, 7 billion population, most are gonna say, I mean, they'd rather be born rich, right? Like, and that's essentially what Fishbones is, you know, or any of the plus range artifacts. With that being said, if you get +1 Automata, You definitely can go for Nocturne without one of the +1 ranges. Just keep in mind that like Kogmaw's complete garbage right now, so do not trust him as like a secondary carry. You really just want to play around the Malzahar. But yeah, we could look at the traits. If we type in 6 over here, like 3.09, like very solid if you are able to hit the Malzahar and the emblem. So it's like if you do have the emblem, definitely try to go for it. Gets a lot worse at 4, like it's 4.5 or 4.49. But really the main power is going to be coming from these items. Like we could sort by artifacts, like all of these drastically improve Nocturne, like the top 3. Rapid Fire Cannon, Fishbones, and Sniper's Focus, the ones I kind of mentioned before. So keep that in mind when you do play this. And 2-cost reroll, go for level 6, 3-2, Stabilize, and then Econ back up, go for Nocturne 3 after that. Heimerdinger Flex is going to be the next build we're going to cover. Heimerdinger's not that great in this patch. I don't know if a bug's going on or something like that that they didn't really tell us about. I don't remember seeing any visionary changes, but check this out. This is why data is so important sometimes, because look at this. 2 visionary, 4.48, 8 visionary, 4.56, and then like 6 and 4 also like below average, right? But then if we take a look at last patch, like they were much better. Like I don't know what changed, because like I scoured the patch notes looking for visionary changes. And I mean, we could look at them right now together again, but like I'm looking and I don't see any changes to like anything that important to Heimerdinger. So I don't know what's going on, other than other stuff got stronger, but something's telling me that something went up. In fact, Malzahar got buffed a little bit because Automata got nerfed. But that's more for the Automata build, you know? It's like they nerfed the 6 trait really, really hard. So I don't know what this has to do with Visionary, but Visionaries are just not performing in the data right now. It could just be a case of low sample size, but something's telling me something's weird's going on. But the good news is that the Sentinel build is still good, because like Ilaoi's still nice, and if you have blue buff, he's going to be really powerful. It's just don't try to go too deep or all in this build, definitely compared to the previous patches. Another thing you can do, by the way, is go for the Corki carry. Combine Heimerdinger and Corki. That's probably going to be the best way to kind of play this comp. Heimerdinger and Corki, they just work really well together because they share a lot of synergies with the rest of their team. For example, Heimerdinger is an Academy unit, and then you have Ezreal and Leona for Sentinel and Artillerist. Corki is Scrap and Artillerist, so he gets that with Ezreal, but Rumble's also a Sentinel, so that works with the Leona. So you get a lot of hidden synergies with Heimerdinger and Corki, and they're both Yordles, so you get +2 Yordle there. But overall, okay build. I just wouldn't hard force this every game, but if I get a spot for it, I'm definitely going to be playing this a bunch. Maybe 2 out of 20 games, maybe something like that. A much rarer comp to play is going to be Form Swapper, but Form Swappers did get buffed, mainly like melee GP, but I think if you run Swain tank GP backline, it's going to be really nice. The Why Not Both augment I think is also pretty solid, but you just do 3-cost reroll for this, but you're probably going to be playing this comp 1 out of every like 50 games or something like that. Conqueror, very solid if you get the early start for it. Maybe 1 out of every 25 games, 1 out of 30 games. If you have upgraded Darius and Draven at stage 2-1, Conqueror emblem, you're definitely going to be going Conqueror and just getting Giga stacks and just snowballing the game there. Just make sure you just keep winning in the early game. I know that sounds so stupid, but it really is that important to keep stacking up, because you get even stronger as you get more and more cash outs. Next build up we have is going to be the Emissary Sorcerer Nami build. So a couple of different ways to play this. You could go like for Emissary. You could also go for much deeper into Sorcerer, like just going the regular 8 Sorcerer build with the Nami. There are also multiple builds of this comp. Some people go Gangplank 3, some people don't. They just go for Swain and Nami, and it kind of depends what augments you get. If you get Prismatic Ticket, the way the augment works is that you absolutely need a lot of 3 stars, and if you don't get that, the augment's kind of wasted. So if you get like Prismatic Ticket, which I really like for 3-cost reroll, you absolutely need to get multiple things 3-star, not just like 2 things. For your main tank, you obviously want to be running Garen. He's going to be the Watcher unit, so you add in Vlad, he's Sorcerer and Watcher. And if you are able to hit all the Emissaries, nice. If not, play the Sorcerer build and you just go 6 Sword, because you're probably not going to be hitting LeBlanc. LeBlanc can be anyone though. It could be Luck, Zyra, things like that, whatever you had from the early game. But a lot of these comps we have at the bottom of the A tier, you're not going to be playing them that much. I want to focus more actually, and none in the B tier either. But I want to focus a lot more on the special tier, which is going to be all the way down here. We have the very special tier. The first comp up we have is going to be trolling Trundle. And despite the name, like, no, I'm not trolling. Like, we are in like a hero augment patch like I alluded to at the beginning of the video. He's going to be super duper duper strong. And he actually has two builds. He has the BT Sterex Titan's Resolve build and also this Quicksilver and Rageblade build. I think both builds are fair. I like this one a bit more because I don't like him getting crowd controlled. So I tend to build him like this rather than the other way. But you just play 6 Bruisers. None of the other units matter that much, but you do want some sort of secondary carry. It could be something like a Gangplank. He's a scrap unit and like relatively cheap, so you could get him to 2-star very easily as a 3 cost. You don't really need any of the other Bruisers to do any of the heavy lifting, so sometimes you could also use Elise in the back line. She's good with like Morello and an Archangel because you have a lot of tanks to buy her time, but all I'm trying to say is make sure you do have 2 damage dealers in this build because Trundle alone cannot win the game, but he will stabilize you super, super hard. Next build up we have is Crimson Pact Vladimir, and oddly enough, there are 2 ways to build this Vladimir. You could either go for 5 Blackrose or you could go for 6 Watcher. So depending on what you hit, you want to kind of adjust based on that. But in the Blackrose build, you just have Vlad in the back, a couple of tanks up front, run as many Sorks as you can, and Swain and Scion are going to be acting as the main tanks here. If you're playing the Watcher version, this one's much simpler. You just play all the Watchers up front, tank items on Garen, and you can reroll Vander if you want to, and then just put your Vlad in the back line with the Static Shiv. As for items, you want to build them exactly like how you would Kogmaw, just Rageblade, Gunblade, Archangels. You could have some variations here and there, just make sure he's dealing a lot of damage, but you could even do something like a double Rageblade. But overall, very strong right now. You pretty much just need a lot of tanks to buy time for him to ramp up and then eventually kill everything. Build difference also very good right now. Let's go over build different a little bit. So the way you want to build this comp, like the basics of it, is you run all the 4 cost units, and make sure if you do run Garen, you're running Ambessa as well. That way you get 2 Emissary to cancel out the trait. And then for items, you want to just focus on whoever you have 2 stars. So you could do Corki carry, Twitch carry, any of the 4 cost units can carry. You could also add 5 costs into this build too, and also run duplicate champions. You notice I have like 2 Elises out here, but essentially like whatever 4 costs you get, you can play them. So in the beginning of the game, I like building a bunch of flexible items such as like Spear of Shojin. It works on like Silco, Heimerdinger, Zoe, things like that. Giant Slayer can work on all of them. Guardbreaker can work on all of them. Red Buff can work on a lot of them, like Twitch, Corki, Silco, Heimerdinger all use that. Zoe uses that too. Literally all the damage dealers use that. So red buff is also a huge priority. Tank items are really nice to slam because like you're always going to need a tank. But overall, like once you find some sort of direction with your items, you could go all in on either AP or AD. So with Twitch, I think he's going to be the best version of the built different right now. You definitely want a Rageblade, and then you want to kind of add in is just regular items that he uses, such as like IE, Deathblade, Runons, things like that. Corki, I like using him as like my last Whisper holder. He's pretty nice because, again, Corki's not needy. That's my favorite part about him. For the front line, any of these can hold tank items. If you have mana items such as Protector's Vow, you can drop them on Elise. Warmog's Redemption, things like that. Steadfast Heart, put that on Garen. One thing to keep in mind, you don't need to put Garen in the middle of your team anymore because you do not have the Emissary bonus anymore. So you could put him on the edge if you want. But Alawi can also be a main tank. Ambessa, Vi, these two can use a lot of the melee bruiser items, such as like Sterex Gauge, Titan's Resolve, Bloodthirster, things like that. And then of course like Silco Heimerdinger uses all the AP items such as like Shojin. Other things you could do with this build is add in legendaries to complement. Another thing you could do with this build is add in legendaries to complement your team. Popular ones are going to be Jace. You have to take out Elise though, so it is a little awkward. Doesn't always work out perfectly, but he's probably going to be the main star of the show. You could also drop in the Mordekaiser. He's good as a Dominator, but then you have to take out Ambessa and then run like a different Emissary with the Garen. It could be something like a Nami, and with that you could do Mordekaiser with like Edge and Knight carry, same stuff he uses before, maybe like a Quicksilver and then some sort of AP item, maybe like a hat. Nashor's Tooth is probably going to be the most popular. What other 5 costs can you run here? Like LeBlanc, very solid support unit if you don't run the Nami and run a different Emissary instead. Maybe you don't have Mordekaiser. Pretty much any of these can do as long as they don't have any traits activated. So that's just one thing to kind of keep in mind whenever you are playing this. But always make sure you have a strong front line. Like have at least like one upgraded front line with full items, one upgraded back line with full items, and then run duplicates of those champions so that you could potentially get like 3 stars of them. Like for example, if you have like a lot of AD items, you don't have to put them on Corki. You could play like 2 Twitches and have one Twitch carry one set of items, another Twitch carry the other, and then later on upgrade them into a 3-star Twitch if you get one of those games. Like it doesn't happen all the time, but it's a win condition that you definitely should play around. But very fun stuff. Built Different is finally in like a decent spot. Like before, people have been kind of avoiding it, and I think it's because Twitch is in the meta right now. Reunion, Echo, and Vi gonna be decently solid. It's just like a Firelight build. Echo's just really good, so just play him as much as possible. I think he's just very solid overall. Vi also another good 4-cost unit, but for all the trait augments, and we'll see all that stuff up here, like Reunion, Menaces, Martial Law, things like that, what could have been, only pick them if you actually have those units. So like for Reunion, for example, you need 2 4-cost units. If I don't have a copy of Vi or Echo or any semblance of the board we see here, I'm not going to pick it. So just keep that in mind. If you are running it, just because something's good, you don't automatically just rush for it. The Dominator build with Powder, you just play this if you have like a 2-star Powder. By the time you get this augment offered, which is on stage 3-2, you get the Silco automatically, and then you can kind of play around your Powder really easily. And then just go some sort of Dominator build. Bronze for Life, very OP. Just play any of these versions you see here. Lots of options there. Why not both? Just classic Gangplank Swain build. There's a lot of different ways to kind of put this, and of course if you do get 4 Form Swapper, definitely try it out. Going to be even more powerful in that case, but it's a little hard to hit both the 3-star 3 cost and the 5 cost when you play this, so you don't always get the Jace. Martial Law, same rule from before. If you don't have like at least 1 copy of Ambessa, like I prefer playing this if I can get an Ambessa 2 and then I'm getting a Caitlyn, or if I'm playing the Enforcer build beforehand. That's another great way to take this augment. That way you get a free Caitlyn. So those are kind of like the 2 situations where I'd play this. If I have a champion duplicator, this comp becomes much better as well, because I can very easily get a Caitlyn 2-star. So keep that in mind whenever you have like a 4 or 5 cost type of combo. But overall, like check out some of these other builds down here. The OP ones I kind of highlighted under this little very special section, but like in the special tier, like all these are pretty viable, but they're just not like super OP that you absolutely need to know. But if you have like 3 Stebs at the start of the game and then you get Combat-matic Steb for your 4th Steb, definitely consider going for it if you have items for it, like Archangel's Bloodthirster, things like that. Same with all the other hero augments. But right now, like I think hero augments are actually pretty good, especially the ones up here. Trolling Trundle and Crimson Pact, definitely something to look into. But the way I'm going to be approaching the patch, as I said before, is if I get artifact item, I am going to go for the Nocturne reroll, but it's going to be much more difficult to do now. If I do an emblem comp, like any of the Twitch, Zoe, Bruiser, Scrap, Ambushers, and Vi will do. For regular defaults, like for AP, I'm still going to go Dominator because that's my comfort pick. But if you're better at other AP comps or don't really know Dominators that well, first you should check out the video that I made before. But if not, there are other options here, like Sorcerer. You could possibly go with 6 Sorc, even without the emblem. It could probably hold you decently, but I wouldn't do it personally. And then of course you could also go for Rebels. And then with AD items, like any of the Twitch builds, the Urgot build, Corki builds, anything like that will definitely serve you pretty well. But just as a reminder, if you do want your games reviewed by me, submit them in the form below in the description. But let's get on into the comments of the week. You say Ziggs isn't in the final comp if you add the emblem. They're talking about the Dominator comp over here. But even in the no emblem version, you don't have him, you only have 4 Dominator. Should you still play Ziggs with no emblem? And you can and you can't. Like, to be honest, it depends what units I'm hitting. If I'm having a lot of like Blackrose units, I might play the Blackrose, like if I hit the LeBlanc early. If I don't have good items for Ziggs, sometimes I drop him. And if I'm carrying Mordekaiser, like I definitely will play the 6 Dominator. I think it's going to be really strong. But if I have like no items for Mordekaiser, or maybe he's like a Mordekaiser 1, then I will not run the Ziggs. But if you do want to play the 6 Dominator Ziggs, just take out some of the Blackrose units and then add in Ziggs and Blitzcrank. That way you are able to play 6. So how many units do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're probably not going to hit level 10 in a lot of games, so we have to cut 1 more unit. Probably going to be the Garen, just because of Vladimir's giving us Blackrose. But sometimes you could drop Elise if it's like Elise 1. But it probably would look something like this. Of course, again, you could check out my Dominator 3-hour video if you want a lot more information on this. But I don't feel that big of a difference between 6 Dominator and 4 Dominator, to be honest, without the emblem. But if I do have a Mordekaiser 2, such as like Edge and Knight, Nashers, things like that, like I'm gonna be going 6 Dominator so that he smacks extra hard. And I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'm gonna respond to a negative comment. I'm gonna try to like respond more to the positive comments, because I'm pretty sure if I respond to the negative comments, people are gonna keep making them so that they show up in the video. But one person responded to like an older video I made about like luck in TFT, and he's like, can you post a video of you winning against someone with all 3-star units using only skill? And then like, it's such a stupid question to ask. Like, people call me a gambling addict in that video when they didn't even watch it. And I literally never gamble in real life. So I don't really know what they're saying, but I pretty much just responded by asking them if they could show me like a very good poker player beating a royal flush with only skill. Obviously you can't, you just go into the next game, and it's like, if you win over time, like over a big sample size, like you're gonna be outskilling a lot of people. Like, I don't know why people think that games have no skill. It is so stupid. They think the skill is pressing reroll very quickly, apparently, but it does help to click reroll faster. I'm not gonna say it hurts, but like specifically on the anomaly round, you have like a minute and change to like do your whole turn, so that's like more than enough time to do all your rolls. So again, I don't really know what he's talking about there, but over a big sample size, you will outskill people. And in that video, I talked about my tournament play in a tournament I played in a long time ago. And if I played better, I would have qualified because I missed by like a couple of points. So if I fixed one mistake in like 3 different games, I probably would have made it, despite thinking I had bad RNG in those games, which I think I did. But you could check out that video too. I left the thumbnail and title in this little picture here. That's gonna be it for me today. I'll try not to respond to the stupid comments. Like, I can't help it sometimes, you know, like I'm gonna try to respond more to the positive comments, but a lot of them are just very nice and not really a question, which I do appreciate, obviously, but some of them are like, oh, thanks so much for this stuff. And obviously I do love reading those. But if you want like a more TFT related question to be reviewed at the end of the video, definitely like leave them down in the comments as well. Or if you have questions, if I like skipped over something that you kind of want to review. But full information is going to be on the website, bunnymuffins.lol/meta, and I'll probably do another coaching video sometime this weekend. So submit your games down below if you have not already. But that's going to be it for me today. Hopefully you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all next time.